Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever and whenever you're watching this video. This time we're discussing Parsha Vayechi. It starts from the words Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, and Yaakov lived last 17 years in Egypt. Lived in Egypt. So finally Yaakov settles down in Goshen, which was the land given to the Jews by the Pharaoh and with Joseph's assistance. And it looks like he is having a basically good life. Finally, he can find some peace. He can teach his grandchildren, at least his younger grandson Ephraim, which is the Menashe and Ephraim are the sons of Joseph, and he is basically enjoying life. The question immediately comes up, how comes now, when he left the Holy Land and finished up in Egypt, he is actually enjoying life? What is going on here? In reality, what's happened is when Yaakov was coming down to Egypt, in front he sent Judah to set up schools, yeshivas, to set up study facilities, homes, community halls, so that Judaism can be organized and can be taught to children and adults alike. And that's why the life Jews had during those first years in Egypt was absolutely marvelous, you know. And so Yaakov peacefully spent every day basically teaching his grandson Ephraim, not Menashe, we'll come to that in a minute, teaching him what he knew of Judaism and knowledge of the Torah and spirituality. Then he feels that after 17 years in Egypt, Yaakov feels that his days are numbered, and he calls Joseph and makes him to swear, to promise him that he will bury him in the land of Israel, in the Holy Land. At that time it was formerly called Canaan. Joseph, of course, does that, and Yaakov gets very ill, very sick, and Joseph brings his two sons, Menashe and Ephraim, to receive blessings from his father, from Yaakov. And he naturally places Menashe on the right hand of Jacob, Yaakov, and Ephraim on the left hand because he's younger. And something incredible takes place during that very moment. First of all, before Yaakov wanted to, when Yaakov wanted to bless the boys, the first statement, the first question he asks, who are these? So, you know, it's a perplexing question. Come on, he has been for 17 years here in Egypt with Joseph and with all his family, and he was teaching Ephraim on all this time Judaism on daily basis and all the spirituality and everything, teaching him Torah, and basically, and so what kind of question is that? So initially Joseph is very confused and doesn't know what to say to his father. You know, who are these? Who are these boys, basically, right? But then he realizes that maybe his father has got some questions regarding Joseph's marriage. So he shows him the ketubah, the official marriage contract, and all the letters and the documents stating that he is formally married, officially married, and that the Osnas, his wife, is actually Jewish, and this is another long story which I'm not going to go into this right now, and there are lots of debates about this. And nevertheless, he proves to him that this is what it's all about. So these boys are quite legitimate children. However, he can see that there is something is not right. His father still hesitates to bless the boys. And what has happened is, suddenly that moment, Yaakov's spiritual power left him. Shekhinah left him. Why? Because a prophet like Yaakov doesn't look at the physical body, it doesn't look particularly before he is going to bless the children. He looks through the eyes at the soul. He looks into the future. Whom this soul, this particular person will produce. Who are the descendants of this person? Now, and what Yaakov saw, that the descendants of Menashe and Ephraim, there are some very bad people going to come out from this seed as well. There will be some good ones. Yeah, there will be King David and King Solomon. However, there will be some very bad kings. I'm not going now into all the names which eventually will divide Israel and eventually will be conquered. And as a result of this, he initially, the Shekhinah left him. So he couldn't bless the boys. And he could see through the future, which was looking not very bright. So Joseph, understanding, being a prophet himself, being a very spiritual person, that something is drastically wrong, so he started praying. He was praying to Hashem, asking him to enable his father to bless his sons. It was very important, because blessing from the grandfather to the grandchildren is like passing on an additional spiritual power to those children, to enable them to succeed in their spiritual levels, in their spiritual growth, and to enable all the future generations to succeed and grow. So it was a very important moment, and it looks like Joseph's prayer has actually helped, and so that the Shekhinah returned back to Yaakov, his spiritual power, and he could bless the children. And again, there is some level of confusion, because he crisscrosses his hands, and he puts the right hand on the head of Ephraim and the left hand on Menashe. Joseph was trying to correct him, but that didn't work. Yaakov insisted that he knows what he is doing. And the reason why he did that, there are a number of interpretations for that. One of them is that Menashe was born when Joseph still was at the very beginning of his ascent in Egypt. So he was still relatively poor, and he was still struggling. More than that, Menashe spoke Hebrew and knew it very well, and knew all the Jewish traditions. And Ephraim was born much later, when Joseph was at the pinnacle of his power, was extremely wealthy, very, very powerful, and extremely respected in Egypt. So that's why Yaakov felt that Ephraim needs a little bit more of his attention, and this is why he was teaching him Torah on daily basis rather than Menashe. And this is why he felt that it's important to bless Ephraim first and then Menashe. So Yaakov puts his right hand on Ephraim, because this is Hesed, this is unlimited giving. It's compassion and giving. Where Menashe receives judgment and control and limitations, which is din, left hand. Now, both of them received their blessings for sure, and both of them became tribes. There is no tribe of Joseph. There are tribes of Menashe and there are tribes of Ephraim. He basically says the following: "May the angels who redeemed me from all harm bless the youth, and may they be called by my name and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and may they multiply abundantly like fish in the midst of the land. I understand that Joseph was really disturbed by the fact that Yaakov placed his right hand on Ephraim and left hand on Manasseh, and he asked his father, why you blessing the younger brother above the older brother, because he was afraid that it will create again animosity, because you remember the story which Yaakov had between Yaakov and Esau, because of the blessing which Yaakov basically stolen from Esau. And you remember the story, obviously, of Joseph's struggles with the hatred of his brothers. So, in order to basically to quieten Joseph, to tell him, look, everything is fine, Jacob further blesses them and says to them, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, after this, Jacob summons all his sons, and he initially wants to tell them about the end of days, about the arrival of Messiah. But suddenly the Shekinah, his spiritual power, leaves him again, and he could not do it. So he starts talking about, each individual tribe, and each individual tribe gets their blessings on the basis of the head of the tribe, and it's really a very long and very detailed set of blessings he gives to each one of his sons. I will not go into the details of each one of them, but it's the major part of this parsha, which basically describes the positives and the negatives of each one of his sons. The question arises immediately, why he couldn't tell them about the end of days and about the arrival of Messiah. And there are again a number of different explanations to that. One of them is that Hashem didn't want him to tell them. He didn't want him to tell them that it will take thousands of years, slavery of Jews for 210 years in Egypt, suffering. It will take whole history of Jewish history, which is a very difficult and painful history of pogroms and constant movement through the planet, and constantly, why wanderings, why we are called wandering Jews, because we were constantly forced to leave the land where we would come in, because we were spread across the planet through Galut. And if you look at whole history of humanity, right through starting from year 1000, even before that, right, and look right to our times, you will find a whole list of historical events when Jews would come into the country and the country would prosper. Jews would work in that country very hard. The country will benefit, will grow economically, will do wonderfully, and will elevate itself comparing to its neighbors. But then later on, jealousy sets in, and for one reason or the other, the rulers of the country would start expelling Jews, enslaving them, pogroms will start, all sorts of things. There is no need to go very far. Just one simple example is Queen Isabella in Spain, when she told the Jews, you either convert, or we will kill you, the Inquisition will kill you, or leave the country now, leave Spain now. And majority of Jews left, but quite a few of them converted and secretly were trying to continue their Jewish life. They were called Maranas, and it's quite a known fact, and everybody knows about it. You know, and Inquisition for surely was looking for that, and was constantly chasing those Maranas and trying to figure out who is actually not a real Christian. Now, and as a consequence of this, thousands upon thousands of Jews were killed by the Inquisition and suffered a lot in the process. So what we're having here is, because of this, Shekhinah, God, didn't want Yaakov to tell his sons that all of this is coming, because that may create a huge depression. You know, that may create a situation where they, the sons, the heads of the future tribes, the 12 sons standing around Yaakov, who is passing away, will get very, very depressed, will get very upset. The other explanation of this is that Yaakov looked at his sons, and every one of them was perfect. Every one of them continued with spirituality, continued with the Jewish knowledge. Every one of them was absolutely spiritually perfect. He himself was perfect. So the question is asked, so why? That's another explanation, why Hashem didn't want him to reveal everything to them. And the answer is, they were not united. He saw that there are some animosities between them. And he saw that, for instance, the brothers, the Leah's sons, are still afraid of Joseph, because Joseph is a powerful king now, and he basically is powerful enough to do anything he wants with them. And so Yaakov saw that, and this is probably another possible explanation why he couldn't reveal to them the actual final truths, the days when Mashiach will come. The thing is that the spirituality, Mashiach, Hashem, whichever way you want to call it, we can communicate with that world on daily basis. Every Jew, when he really honestly wants to pray, he can talk to Hashem. And I'm sure that our prayers finally finish up where they're supposed to finish up. However, we cannot achieve final redemption, and we cannot bring Mashiach. Why? Because we are not united. Because if you look in every community, in every group, there are little hates between the people. Even in my shul, you know, there are some people who hate me. I don't hate anybody. I like everybody, but you know, but you feel who feels towards you better, and so who doesn't feel very well towards you. And those little animosities, which is what preventing us from being totally united, from being as one. And this is one of the major reasons why Yaakov here couldn't tell them what the future holds as well. The parsha continues with Joseph getting finally the permission from the Pharaoh to bury Yaakov in the land of Israel, in the cave of Machpelah, with all where Abraham and Sarah buried, and where Yitzhak and Rivka buried, and and where Leah is buried. So Yaakov is buried in the land of Israel, in the cave of Machpelah. The funeral procession was huge. There were representatives from all the different Egyptian areas. You know, it was a huge, major event taking place in Egypt, where everybody, the Egyptians and the Jews, of course, were escorting Yaakov's body to his final resting place. As I said earlier, Joseph's brothers feared that after Yaakov passing away, Joseph may still harbor some anger towards them. And that's why, and there may be some retribution. So they bring Joseph a letter, as if this letter was written by Yaakov, his final words, saying that he, Joseph, must forgive the brothers for their sin, for selling him into slavery, and for all the horrible crimes which they did to him because of this, and all the horrible consequences which were the consequence of this crime. Joseph reassures them that he doesn't harbor any ill feelings towards them, and he certainly did not. And he's saying that basically all what has transpired was good, because that has enabled all of them to survive. It's brilliantly summed up, actually, in the words which I found in Rabbi Jonathan Sacks's book, again, Covenant and Conversations. And it says the following. This is Joseph's response. "Don't be afraid," said Joseph. "Am I in place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." And this is absolutely unbelievable. These are unbelievable words. This is basically the ultimate forgiveness. And this is what we all should learn from this parsha, basically, is how to forgive and how to relate to people who even harmed us, to our members of our families, not to harbor ill thoughts, ill memories. Even when when somebody passes away and we may have maybe some difficult memories about those people, try to forget them. Try to remember the good times, how this person was nice and loving to you rather than the other way around. I want to finish with the words again of Rabbi Sacks, saying the following. "Only now, with the reconciliation of Joseph and his brothers, can the story move on to the birth of Israel as a nation, passing from the crucible of slavery to the constitution of freedom, as people under the sovereignty of God." This is the last parsha of the first book of Moses, of 5 books of Moses, Bereshit. And it's really finishing up on on one hand, a difficult step when we know that Jewish people finally stepping into Egypt and where they eventually will be enslaved. But on the other hand, we understand that this is the major chapter of our forefathers' deeds, stories, achievements is closing down. And the next book, which we will go to, will be Exodus Shemot. So, where we will be formed as a nation. Joseph finally, at the age of 110, passes away as well. And before his passing away, he gets his brothers to promise him that he will be buried in the land of Israel, and that they will take him out of Egypt. Joseph is embalmed and buried. And as a matter of fact, I read in some of the books that his coffin was put at the bottom of Nile River, hidden away. Now, we know very well that eventually during the Exodus, this coffin was taken up, was lifted from the bottom of Nile and taken by Moshe and his people and all the Jewish people following Moshe Rabbeinu to Egypt, into the desert, basically, initially, and Joseph was taken, Joseph's coffin was taken with them. I don't want to say that either Yaakov or Joseph may rest in peace, because we all believe that our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Joseph, our tzaddikim, they are still alive. They are still there. They're looking at us. They're looking at what we do in these difficult times, where and how we can find unity, love, and forgiveness to each other. May God bless you, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.